Imagine, if you will, huge, sprawling tunnels beneath the continental United States, megastructures built on foundations of paranoia and kept alive for the sake of scientific horror, a relic of the Cold War, modernized and repurposed for a much darker goal. Tales of child experimentation and super soldier programs, all beneath our feet in this very moment. This is the D.U.M.B.S conspiracy theory, a very long and interesting subject. This specific theory is massive and branches off into multiple different topics. Some theorists claim an alien connection with treaties and alliances between man and extraterrestrial. Others claim a multitude of experiments are made and conducted far away from both the public eye and ethics. But like all theories, it's best we start at the beginning. For us to unravel this complicated web of testimonies and theories, we must first find the one most likely responsible for starting the entire theory in the first place. From what I could gather, the D.U.M.B.S conspiracy theory begins with one man, Phil Schneider. But who is Phil Schneider? Phil Schneider was an American builder and conspiracy theorist who claimed he worked for the government for many years and claims to have worked on secret underground military bases, including the D.U.M.B.S base in New Mexico. He was born in 1947, but sadly, I really couldn't find much on his early life, besides the fact that he claims his father also worked with the military in secret projects. The D.U.M.B.S base is a supposed underground bunker created by the US government in the New Mexico desert, being a joint operation between humans and extraterrestrials. The D.U.M.B.S base's existence was first reported by a businessman named Paul Benowitz, who claims he intercepted electronic communication originating from the base. Phil Schneider claims to have been involved in the construction of these bases and to have seen and experienced various paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. The D.U.M.B.S base is also the site of an event Phil calls the Dose Wars. Phil claims that in 1979, while excavating the D.U.M.B.S base, there was a problem with shafts suddenly sinking. While determining the cause, Phil reportedly discovered a cave full of aliens. This, as he tells, led to the FBI and a unit he calls the Black Berets to intervene. I couldn't find much more about this event, but from the name alone, I can assume that these aliens were hostile in nature, and that fighting between the so-called Black Berets and the aliens took place. However, there is little independent verification of Schneider's early life and career outside of his own accounts. Some researchers have attempted to verify his claims through public records and interviews with individuals who might have known him, but the results have been inconclusive. Schneider has also claimed to be a part of the Philadelphia experiment, a supposed secret military experiment that allegedly involved teleporting a US Navy ship through time and space. Schneider believed that there were 7 benevolent alien species living on Earth and 4 evil species, and that the US government had signed treaties with these aliens in 1944, 1954, 1962, and 1979. He also believed that the government was hiding the existence of extraterrestrial life and technology from the public. This is not the only time that Schneider has claimed a connection between the government and the aliens, however. He also claims in what is probably his most famous conspiracy theory, that known as the alien agenda, that the US government became aware of EVEs in 1933, and that they had a plan to supposedly control the Earth by 2029. In his theory, Schneider tells that 16 UFOs crashed all across the US between 1947 and 1952, and that the government recovered 117 bodies from these crash landings. But, most interestingly, 4 living aliens, that managed to survive their spaceship's fall from orbit. He also tells that the unit responsible for the security of these aliens and of other EVE-related materials is done by a secret unit known only as the Blue Berets, and that all of this was done under the so-called Project Pounce, which I can only assume was the name of the UFO recovery effort. Phil believed that the D.U.M.B.S as a whole were not created solely to withstand nuclear holocaust, but also as a defense system against the alien invasion. Schneider's claims were met with skepticism by many, and his death in 1966 was ruled a suicide. However, some of his followers believed that he might have been murdered to silence him. Despite the controversy surrounding his claims, Schneider remains a figure of interest among conspiracy theorists and those interested in extraterrestrial life and government cover-ups. But now, before I go further into the other theories about the D.U.M.B.S, I must say this. D.U.M.B.S, as in underground military bases, are not a theory. They are in fact several real-life underground military bases in not just the US alone, but in many different countries. They are real. There are actual giant doomsday bunkers out there. That is not something that is up to debate. There is, for example, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which is part of the bigger NORAD system, and there is also the bunker complex built beneath Mount Yamantau by the Russians. In fact, there was even a real-life project called D.U.M.B.S, or Deep Underground Command and Control Site, created by the United States military as an installation to survive high-yield nuclear weapons. The construction of this installation was pitched to Lyndon B. Johnson by one of his aides called Spurgeon M. Kenney Jr. Spurgeon recalls what happened when he pitched the idea to Johnson. Johnson, despite his growing preoccupation with Vietnam, rejected out of hand the use of nuclear weapons there. His view of nuclear weapons was brought home to me by his reaction at the final meeting in 1965 on the military budget to an item listed as D.U.M.B.S. In response to his question as to what this was, he was told that it stood for Deep Underground Command and Control Site, a facility that will be located several thousand feet underground between the White House and the Pentagon, designed to survive a ground burst of a 20-megaton bomb and sustain the president and key advisors for several months until it will be safe to exit through tunnels emerging many miles outside of Washington. After a brief, puzzled expression, Johnson let loose with a string of Johnsonian expletives, making clear that he thought this was the stupidest idea he ever heard, and that he had no intention of hiding in an expensive hole while the rest of Washington, and probably the United States, was burned to a crisp. That was the last I ever heard of D.U.M.B.S. So, yeah, while underground military bases are not by themselves a theory, they are indeed real. The following theories are about what happens inside those bases, and the claims that there are several more of them, way more of them in fact, than we think. Theory 1. Aliens in secret laboratories. Now, the first set of theories for the D.U.M.B.S are what I like to call the disciples of Schneider, because these people are basically just expanding on what Phil had already began. So all the theories here are about how, the D.U.M.B.S house aliens and crashed UFOs and all the relationships between men and extraterrestrials. So all of these theories in this section are about that. They're about aliens. They're about building on top of what Schneider began. However, although Schneider was mostly focused on the alien connection, there's a lot of overlap between believers in this theory and other ideas that mixed themes of secret experiments and like forbidden scientific experimentation. So because of this, there's like this huge overlap where a lot of these theories, they follow where Phil Schneider left off with the aliens and everything, but they also add their own things on top. So they talk about things like secret rituals done by secret societies in the D.U.M.B.S, and things like black magic and child exploitation and human trafficking and everything. So it's a very big kind of like jumbled ball of ideas. So yeah, a lot of these theories, they kind of jump from place to place wildly. So a lot of them try to kind of keep up with what Phil started. They're going to talk about aliens, they're going to talk about reptilians and everything else. But every now and again they jump to things like Freemasons and black magic and whatever. So yeah, it's a little bit weird because it's just this huge overlap, but get ready for it, because that's what these theories mostly revolve around. And look, before I go into these testimonials, let me just give like a quick disclaimer here, because up so far we have been talking about things that are a little bit more concrete. I've been showing examples of real life DUMBs, and even as crazy as some of the shit that Phil Schneider has said, at least he has some backing in the area, because he really was a geologist and an engineer for the government, so he has a little bit more credentials to talk about these sort of things. So everything so far has been crazy, but it at least tries to like keep one foot within reality and try to have like at least some kind of, I don't know how to put it, some kind of like credential, some kind of source to everything. But the next section we're gonna talk about are just testimonials, which means these are just stories that are posted on the internet by whoever. Like anyone can post these things online. So because of this, it's impossible to source anything. It's impossible to see if the person that posted these stories is trustworthy. Look, at the end of the day, this next section of the video is going to be essentially just internet tall tales. And if you're like me and you enjoy that sort of thing, because at the end of the day it's a cool story, then you're gonna probably like this part of the video. But if you're looking for something a little bit more analytical, that might have a little bit more backing, then this might not be the section for you. But if you're like me, just take it as it is. It's an internet tall tale, it's a cool story, it's fun. If you take it like that, then you're probably gonna enjoy this next section. So I'm just putting the disclaimer out here. Like all that I'm gonna say here from now on is just pure testimonial. There's no, it's literally just the words of random schizophrenics on the internet, okay? Nothing else, nothing more. The first one of these testimonials that I would like to bring attention to is one of the more long ones. Like this one is pretty fucking long, and it's made by a man that identifies himself as James Casbolt, who claims to have worked for the MI6 for several years. I found this story in a site called the dreamlandresort.com, and frankly, this website is just magnificent. Like, I fell in love with this website. There's so many just interesting, cool fucking things to see here. If you are interested in anything related to Area 51 or like prototype military aircraft and all this other more secretive conspiracy shit, you're gonna fucking love this website. But it's such a wealth of information. Like, I can't recommend it enough. If this is the type of stuff that you enjoy, please go visit them. They also seem to rely on like donations to keep their servers up. So if you go in there and you read some of their articles and stuff and you liked it, please consider donating to them, because what they're doing is actually really cool. Like I'm just loving going through this website right now, to be honest. I'll probably make a lot more videos based on things that I found on the Dreamland Resort, so that's just how good of a resource it really is. But enough about that, let's go back to James, and this is just one of his many emails he posted online. And it goes as follows. Greetings, my name is James Casbolt. I worked for MI6 between 1995 and 1999 in, I'm ashamed to say, the dreaded Black Ops. Here's a copy of my new article. I am trying to raise public awareness of the crimes against humanity that are taking place in the D.U.M.B.S, deep underground military bases, around the world. I would be very happy if you could post this article on your website. I worked in MI6 covert cocaine trafficking operations with the IRA in London between 1995 and 1999. My father, Peter Casbolt, was also MI6 and worked with the CIA and Mafia in Rome in 1993 on covert cocaine and heroin trafficking operations. The global drug trade, run by many factions of the global intelligence community cooperating together, MI6, CIA, Mossad, etc., is worth at least $500 billion a year. This is more than the global oil trade. MI6 controls many of the other intelligence agencies in the world. They created the CIA in 1947 and still control them to this day. This Black Ops drug money, or in classic Orwellian terms, MI6 CIA non-appropriated funds is being used to fund government and military projects classified above top secret. These operations include a huge worldwide UFO cover-up and the building and maintaining of deep underground military bases, such as the Chrysanthemum Underground Biogenetics Facility in Dulce, New Mexico, Pine Gap in Australia, Brecon Beacons in Wales, Snowy Mountains in Australia, the Nyala Range and west of Hindu in Africa, next to the Libyan border in Egypt, Mount Blanc in Switzerland, Marvik in Scandinavia, Gotland Island in Sweden, and many, many more. There are at least 1,400 of these D.U.M.B.S worldwide, 131 in the US, with 2 underground bases being built per year. The average depth of these bases are 4.25 miles underground, some shallower, some deeper. The bases are on average the size of a medium-sized city. Each D.U.M.B costs between $17 and $26 billion to build, which is funded by the MI6 and CIA drug money. A nuclear-powered drill is used to dig underground. This drill goes through rock at a tremendous rate and literally melts the rock away to form a smooth, glass-like surface around the edges of the tunnels. James also reports that a secret project named Project Mannequin, which started in 1972, is currently underway in some of these bases. Now, about Project Mannequin, keep this project in the back of your head. Like, seriously, don't forget about this, because it's gonna come up later and it's gonna be very important. Like, trust me, we are gonna go a bit deeper into this so-called Project Mannequin in a bit. And just keep it in the back of your mind, because it's gonna show up later. It's like a recurring character in an anime. But regardless, about Project Mannequin, James says the following. Project Mannequin was started in 1972, and it's still being run from a 6-level underground facility beneath the small town of Peasmore in Berkshire, a few miles from where I grew up. This underground base is so secret that the local residents of Peasmore are not even aware it exists. This NSA facility, known in intelligence circles as the AL-499 base, is located 200 feet below the village. There are entrances to the facility, one being in Greenhand Commons, known as Bravo entrance, which is now sealed off, the second being in Watchfield Military Science College, Delta entrance, and the third in the Harwell Laboratories in Oxfordshire. The people running the AL-499 facility in Berkshire and the connected underground bases are a hardline military regime that is ultimately a religious cult centered around corrupt Zionists and Rosicrucians. These places are religious centers where so-called black magic rites are performed, ancient deities worshipped, and children trained and sacrificed. James is not the only person to claim to have been inside the deep underground military bases. There are other testimonials made by other alleged witnesses.
One of the largest research centers for experimental programming is on the west coast of the United States. The large research facility is underground and is combined with sophisticated military laboratory research. Another is in East Berlin, and another is in Prague in Europe, and yet another one exists in Rome. A large underground facility located in Czechoslovakia. This facility has numerous altars within it, where sacrifices are done continuously day and night for the spiritual empowerment of the project. This facility is equipped with high-tech equipment.
This second set of theories exists in direct opposition to the first one. These theories are what I like to call the New World Order / martial law theories. The believers in these theories claim that the whole thing about D.U.M.B.S being, that the whole extraterrestrial connection to D.U.M.B.S and basically everything that Phil Schneider has ever said is just a giant smokescreen, essentially. That all this talk about ETs and treaties and a defense network against UFOs and everything is just bullshit. And that in reality, the D.U.M.B.S are what is essentially underground military bases for the NWO, basically the New World Order, and that they exist to house and maintain giant armies that will one day rise up throughout the US and enforce martial law. All in the name of whatever secret society the theorist believes is running everything. They claim that these D.U.M.B.S are also giant concentration camps made to detain at least 15 million Americans. and that the army they house is a secret military force made up of recruits from outside the US. So believers in this theory think that the reason the D.U.M.B.S exist is not for some anti-alien defense system, but instead for a more human cause, a more corrupt, power-grabbing cause, led by whatever secret society / shadow government the theorist believes is behind the plan for a new world order. I have found several documents compiled by believers in this theory, and they have mapped out sites and areas that they believe house these D.U.M.B.S. The list is very long, so I'm just gonna put them all on screen now. And remember, I have no way to confirm these reports, so all the info here is just alleged. Now, in some of the images that I show you here, some theorists actually still include alien elements to their stories, which might seem a little weird to you because I just spent the entire introduction to the section telling you that most believers in the NWO theory don't believe in aliens and they think it's a huge smokescreen. But you see, it's just one of those things that comes with the territory of talking about conspiracy theories. There's a lot of, let's just say, diversity of thinking. So even though most, as a general rule, do not believe in aliens, they generally think that, Phil Schneider and all these other guys are just a smokescreen, there's still some that still believe in the alien angle. So they mostly believe in the NWO thing, but they also add in a little bit of the alien aspect to it. It just comes with the territory. There's a lot of overlap in conspiracy theory circles. There's a lot of people that believe in several ideas at once. It just is what it is. So if you see some of these documents about the NWO still mentioning aliens sometimes, that's why. There's just a huge overlap. However, this whole set of theories about the NWO, especially things regarding FEMA and XR84, it's such a huge subject that instead of just trying to give some oversimplification here, I'm gonna stop and I'll save this for a later video. So in a future video, we were gonna go into a little bit more detail about things like FEMA and RX84 and all the other theories. The third and final theory about the D.U.M.B.S is what I like to call the child trafficking, child experimentation angle, which, again, just like the NWO, it involved elements of the Catholic Church and Jesuits and Freemasons, and look, the entire thing, the entire conspiracy regarding child trafficking by Jesuits and whatever is so dense. There is so many it is such a deep rabbit hole that, frankly, just like the FEMA one, I decided to cut it out of this video, and instead I'm gonna make this into a single standalone video in the future. So it was supposed to be here, that was supposed to be a segment about theories regarding the D.U.M.B.S and their involvement, or at least their supposed involvement in this sort of child trafficking ring, but I decided to cut it out because it is just way too big and I don't want to make this into another 1-hour video, so I'm gonna save this topic for a future video. But before I go, there is one thing about these theories that I need to add. You see, remember James Casbolt and his little thing about Project Mannequin? Well, about that. While researching some of these theories about child trafficking in the D.U.M.B.S, I ended up finding something that linked back to Project Mannequin. And it's the story of a man called Max Spears. Max Spears is a very interesting young man. He was a British man. He claims that during his 30s, certain memories that were long lost started to unlock and resurface in his brain. Memories regarding how he was taken and then trained to serve as a super soldier for the powers that be. He also claimed that certain commands and orders lay dormant inside of his brain, just waiting for a trigger word so that he may carry out a predetermined action. Now, if you remember, Project Mannequin was something that James Casbolt was talking about in his theories. And frankly, while I still believe that the whole James Casbolt thing is frankly not true at all, it's a very cool story, and that's primarily the reason why I still really love this conspiracy. And that's primarily the reason that I still really love these conspiracy topics, because even if you don't believe any of them, and in my case, I don't believe a lot of them, they're such just interesting stories, you know what I mean? They're so cool that I want to listen to them anyway. And James Casbolt mentions Project Mannequin, and I was at first willing to just completely write that off as being like, oh yeah, it's just another one of the inventions that he added to the story. And that might be the case, but there's one thing about Max Spears and his involvement, or at least supposed involvement, in Project Mannequin that gives me pause and makes me think that maybe, just maybe, this whole thing about Project Mannequin might actually have some truth to it, and that just makes it a lot more disturbing. Because you gotta remember, experimentation into making mind control, that is real. Like that, the CIA tried to do that with MK Ultra. So who's to say the British didn't just make their own backyard MK Ultra? And the reason that Max Spears made me kind of believe that Project Mannequin actually has a good chance of being real is because of what happened to him. So let me give you the story. For many years, Max Spears used to do these like speeches and meetings where he would discuss his experiences, right? Well, one of these meetings was supposed to take place. One of these speeches was supposed to take place in Poland in 2016. And he went there, he did the speech, he talked about his experiences, about being brainwashed, taken, and about Project Mannequin and everything. And it seems it's just like a regular event, right? But when he returned to his hotel room, he was fine for a few hours before immediately succumbing to a 24-hour extremely high fever, and then he apparently vomited a dark brown fluid and died, and that's it. Like he just came back to his hotel room, suddenly caught a 24-hour extremely high fever, vomited some weird unidentified substance, and then he just fucking died. Later on, people try to say that he like overdosed because he had a background of drug abuse. But I'm sorry, even if it was an overdose, that has to be one of the weirdest overdoses I've ever seen, because the guy is fine 1 second and then immediately just flares up with a 24-hour fever, throws up, and then just drops dead. Like, literally just dies. And that's what fucks with me. Like I know that there's probably some chance that it really was drugs, or that it was some other reason, maybe some unexplained medical condition that his family isn't like sharing with the world. There probably is. But there's something about the fact that he was speaking out against so many people, and he was talking about all these experiences he had, and then suddenly he goes to his hotel room, catches some weird long-ass fever, vomits, and then just dies. There's something about that just fucks with me. I don't know what to say. So ever since I researched more about him, I just can't get it out of my head. Like, that is such a weird fucking way to die. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way. So ever since, I kind of been treating Project Mannequin with a little bit more credibility. Not a lot, but just a little bit, because that is a fucking weird way for a so-called whistleblower to die, okay? Like, that is not natural. So that's just my opinion on it. And of course, it all got like covered up as le suicide. He just died like that. Like, let's just say these two things at once, the fact that Phil Schneider died in suspicious circumstances and that Max also died in suspicious circumstances, it kind of gives me pause. In the end, all of these stories are incredible, and while I don't believe the majority of them, I do find the entire subject utterly fascinating. It has even served as inspiration for me as like a writer. Like, the D.U.M.B.S as a whole is just one of those rabbit holes that you can just lose yourself in completely and just spend hours researching it to your heart's content. Personally, I do believe that is just a given in my opinion. No, of course governments would do that. So while I do believe that some D.U.M.B.S in a way do exist, I'm not sure I believe in all the other aspects, such as, gigantic human mind control experiments. Not saying that the powers that be haven't engaged in some serious amount of, human trafficking, mind you. Oh no, they definitely have. But sometimes I think some of these stories are a bit too fantastical, and frankly, I believe the truth is a lot more human, but still very disturbing. Basically, I see it as a more umbrella corporation but real, instead of black magic Freemasons and stuff. So that brings it to the end of this video, the first episode of Schizo Hour. It's a very simple one, just a quick look at a small little topic that it always interested me. I like, D.U.M.B.S are just one of my favorites because I just love the idea of underground bases and just underground living as a whole. I really do. In the future Schizo Hour episodes, I'll probably make much longer ones. Like you'll probably be, your average Schizo Hour episode will probably be like an hour long, because I'm gonna be talking about more in-depth theories out there. This one is just supposed to be kind of the first one. It's a little bit more simple. But with that out of the way, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned, because after this one and the Bildo episode, let's just say it's time for the big fish, the Grand Stalker Schizo theory. Oh yeah, you heard me right. It's finally fucking happening. For real this time. This has been Machine. Goodbye, stalkers, and good hunting.